He defeated the beast with his bare hands. The alien spirit ward chose him. The ground shook under my boots before I even understood what was happening. One moment I was standing at the edge of a crowd of strangers, and the next moment, a beam of blue light tore across the courtyard and struck me square in the chest. I did not choose this. Nobody asked me. It simply happened, and every single creature around me went silent at once. My name is Ethan Blake, and 3 days earlier, I had been nothing more than a quiet research assistant assigned to a small human outpost on a planet called Caldris. I studied plants, I logged soil samples, I ate my meals alone and went to sleep early. I was the last person anyone would have picked for what came next. The light did not fade. It wrapped around my ribs like a rope made of static, humming softly, refusing to let go. Around me, the Caldrishi people, tall and pale blue in skin, stared at me with wide golden eyes. Some dropped to their knees. Others backed away as if I had caught fire. A woman pushed through the crowd. Her name was Lyra, and I had met her only once before, during a formal greeting between our two peoples. She was some kind of elder among her kind, a keeper of old customs that the humans on Caldris barely understood. Her face, usually calm, now looked pale with shock. "The ward has chosen you," she said, her voice shaking. "This has not happened in 400 years. "Chosen me for what?" I said, though some part of me already sensed the answer would not be simple. "For the trial," she said. "The beast beneath the temple. If the ward has marked you, you must face it. There is no other way to break the bond." I laughed, because it felt like the only sane response. I catalog moss for a living. I have never been in a real fight in my whole life. Lyra did not laugh with me. The ward does not choose randomly. It looks into a soul and finds something it trusts. Whether you understand it or not, it has already decided you are capable. I looked down at the light still coiled around my chest, and for the first time, fear settled into my stomach like a stone. They gave me 2 days to prepare, though prepare was a generous word for what actually happened. Nobody could train me. No one had fought the beast in centuries, and no weapons or armor were allowed inside the trial chamber. The rules were simple and brutal. Only my own body against whatever waited below the temple. I spent the first day trying to learn everything I could. The beast was called a Drevacor, a creature grown deep within volcanic caves beneath the temple grounds, kept alive by ancient technology that none of the current Caldrishi people fully understood anymore. It was said to be faster than anything with legs that size should be, strong enough to crack solid stone, and utterly without mercy. It had ended every single challenger who walked in before me. That night, I did not sleep. I sat outside my quarters, looking up at a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, and I thought about home. I thought about my mother, who used to tell me that giving up was always a choice, but so was trying one more time. I decided that if I was going to lose tomorrow, I would at least lose while trying. On the second day, a young woman named Nora found me during my morning walk around the temple gardens. She worked as a translator for the human outpost, and unlike most people that week, she looked at me without fear or awe. She simply looked worried. "You do not have to smile through this," she said. "Everyone keeps talking about destiny and honor, but you look like someone who is terrified." "I am terrified," I admitted. "But I don't think terror is the same as giving up." She studied me for a long moment. The elders believe the ward sees something in people that they cannot always see in themselves. Maybe it is not about strength. Maybe it is about what you do with fear. Her words stayed with me long after she walked away. By the time the sun rose on the third day, the entire temple district was packed with onlookers. Thousands of Caldrishi stood on the stone terraces carved into the cliffside, waiting in complete silence. My fellow humans from the outpost were there too, standing near the front, their faces pale with worry. I saw my supervisor, a steady man named Colin, gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Lyra led me to the temple entrance, a massive stone doorway sealed shut for longer than anyone could remember. She placed her hand against my shoulder, an old gesture of respect among her people. "Whatever happens today," she said, "know that the ward has never chosen someone without reason." The doors opened with a low groan, revealing a wide stone chamber, lit by strange glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air inside was warm, and smelled of ash. My footsteps echoed as I stepped forward, and the doors sealed shut behind me with a heavy, final sound. For a moment, there was nothing, just silence, and the flickering light of the crystals. Then I heard it, a low growl rolling out from the darkness ahead, deep enough that I felt it in my chest before I even saw the creature move. The Drevacor stepped into the light, and my whole body went cold. It stood taller than any animal I had ever seen, its body covered in thick-plated skin the color of dried blood, its limbs ending in claws long enough to tear through solid rock. Its eyes glowed faintly, locked onto me with an intensity that made every instinct in my body scream to run. But there was nowhere to run. The doors were sealed. This was the only way out. I raised my hands, though I had no idea what good they would do against something like this. The creature lunged first, faster than anything that size should move. I barely rolled aside in time, my shoulder slamming into the stone floor hard enough to knock the air out of my lungs. I scrambled to my feet, just as it turned, its tail sweeping low across the ground, forcing me to leap over it. There was no plan in my head. There was no training to fall back on. There was only pure instinct and the desperate need to survive one more second. The Drevacor charged again, and this time I could not dodge fully. Its shoulder clipped my side, sending me tumbling across the chamber floor. Pain flared through my ribs, sharp and immediate, but I forced myself back up before it could close the distance again. I remembered something my father once told me, back when I was young and struggling through a difficult wrestling match at school. He said that most creatures, no matter how strong, have a single weak point where their balance depends on everything else. Find that point, and even the biggest opponent can be moved. I studied the beast as it circled me, its breathing heavy, its claws scraping against the stone with every step. Its front legs bore most of its enormous weight. If I could disrupt that balance, even for a moment, I might have a chance. It lunged again, and this time, instead of dodging away, I moved toward it. I grabbed onto one of its front legs with both arms, using every bit of strength I had to twist my body and throw my weight against its joint. The creature roared, stumbling sideways, crashing into one of the stone pillars holding up the chamber ceiling. Dust rained down around us. My arms burned from the strain, but I did not let go. The beast thrashed, trying to shake me off, and I held on with everything I had left, gritting my teeth against the pain shooting through my shoulders. It slammed its body against the wall again, harder this time, and finally I lost my grip, flying backward across the chamber floor. I hit the ground hard, my vision swimming for a moment, before I forced myself to focus. The Drevacor turned toward me again, but this time it moved slower, favoring one of its front legs. I had heard it, even if only a little. I climbed to my feet, ignoring the pain radiating through my entire body. My hands were scraped, my clothes torn, but I was still standing. That had to count for something. The creature charged one final time, and I knew this was the moment that would decide everything. I could not outrun it. I could not outmuscle it. I had one chance to end this, the way my father had once taught me. As it closed the distance, I ducked low and drove my shoulder into its injured front leg with everything I had left. The already weakened joint buckled beneath the impact, and the beast's massive body toppled sideways, crashing into the stone floor with a force that shook the entire chamber. I did not hesitate. I threw myself onto its neck, wrapping my arms around it, pressing all my weight downward, refusing to let it rise again. The creature thrashed beneath me, but its strength was fading, its breathing slowing with each passing second. I held on, my arms shaking, my lungs burning, my mind screaming at me to let go and rest. But somewhere deep inside, that same stubbornness my mother always talked about refused to quit. I held on until the beast's movements slowed to nothing, until its breathing steadied into something calm rather than furious, until finally, it simply stopped fighting. The chamber went completely silent. I rolled off its massive body, collapsing onto the stone floor beside it, staring up at the glowing crystals in the ceiling, my chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. I had not killed it. I did not want to kill it. I had simply outlasted it, worn it down until it had nothing left to give, and somehow, that felt like exactly what the trial had always been about. The sealed doors groaned open, flooding the chamber with sunlight. I turned my head to see Lyra standing there, her golden eyes wide with something between shock and quiet relief. "You survived," she whispered. "Barely," I managed to say, my voice hoarse. She walked toward me, kneeling beside me on the stone floor. "The old stories say the ward chooses those who refuse to break, no matter how much the world tries to break them. I did not fully believe those stories until today." Outside, I could hear the crowd erupting into sound, voices rising in a wave of astonishment and celebration. I struggled to sit up, every muscle in my body protesting the movement, but I managed it, looking out through the open doors at the sea of faces staring back at me. Nora pushed through the crowd first, kneeling beside me with worry still etched across her face. "You are insane," she said, though there was warmth behind the words. "Completely insane." "Maybe," I said, managing a tired smile, "but I am also still breathing." Colin arrived moments later, helping me to my feet with careful hands. "I have never seen anything like that in my life," he said quietly. "None of us had any idea what to expect." "Neither did I admitted. As the days passed, word of what happened inside the temple spread far beyond the small outpost. The Kaldrishi elders spoke of it as though it were the beginning of something new between our two peoples, proof that the old traditions still held meaning, even in a changing world. The humans on the outpost treated me differently too, though I never quite grew comfortable with the attention. Lyra visited me often during my recovery, sharing stories about the ward and its long history among her people. She explained that the light which had chosen me was believed to be an ancient guardian spirit, bound to the temple centuries ago to protect the Kaldrishi during a time of great danger. Over generations, the ritual of choosing a champion had become less about survival and more about tradition, a way of honoring a bond between her people and something greater than themselves. "Why me?" I asked her one evening, as we sat together in the temple gardens, the last light of the day fading into soft orange across the sky. "I am not a warrior. I am not even particularly brave." Lyra considered the question carefully before answering. "Bravery is not the absence of fear, Ethan. It is choosing to act despite it. Perhaps the ward did not choose someone without fear." Her words settled something inside me that had been unsettled since the moment that blue light first wrapped around my chest. In the weeks that followed, life on the outpost slowly returned to something resembling normal, though nothing ever felt quite the same again. I returned to my research, cataloging plants and soil samples just as I had before, but people looked at me differently now, some with respect, some with curiosity, and a few, admittedly, with a bit of awe that made me deeply uncomfortable. Nora and I grew closer during those weeks, spending long evenings talking about everything from our childhoods to our hopes for what our two peoples might build together in the years ahead. She had a way of making even the strangest, most overwhelming moments feel a little lighter, and I found myself grateful for her presence more often than I expected. One evening, as we walked along the edge of the temple grounds overlooking the valley below, she asked me the question everyone seemed to want answered. "What was going through your mind, in there, when you were fighting that thing?" I thought about it for a long moment before answering honestly. "Nothing complicated, really. I just kept thinking about not stopping. Not about winning. Not about being brave. Just about taking one more step, holding on one more second. I think sometimes that is all courage really is. Not some grand feeling, just refusing to quit when everything in you wants to." She smiled softly at that, and for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened felt a little easier to carry. Months later, during a formal gathering between our two peoples, Lyra spoke publicly about the trial for the first time since it happened. She told the story not as a tale of a warrior defeating a monster, but as a reminder that strength comes in many forms, and that the ones who endure the hardest trials are rarely the ones who look strongest from the outside. I stood near the back of the gathering that day, listening to her words, thinking about how far I had come from the quiet researcher who used to eat his meals alone and avoid attention whenever possible. I was still that same person in many ways, still uncertain, still far from anyone's idea of a hero. But I had learned something important about myself inside that stone chamber, something I do not think I could have learned any other way. I learned that fear does not disappear just because you decide to be brave. It stays with you the entire time, whispering every reason you should stop. every reason you should give up. But somewhere underneath that fear, if you search hard enough, there is a quiet kind of stubbornness that refuses to listen. It does not care how strong your opponent is, or how impossible the odds seem. It simply keeps moving forward, one moment at a time, until somehow, the fight is over, and you are still standing. That stubbornness, more than any strength or skill, was what carried me through that chamber. It is what the wards saw in me, long before I ever saw it in myself. And it is what I carry with me still, every single day since. A quiet reminder that even the most ordinary person can find something extraordinary inside themselves, when there is simply no other choice left but to try.